then to online safety. Well, this is the graphic that the Ofcom was pushing out this morning. This is, you may, if you think back a few weeks, remember this organization ACE. They've released a case study on this. So what are they saying? They're saying that analysts from the accelerated capability environment help increase knowledge to inform future policy making from Ofcom. So they're due to gain new regulatory responsibilities, they say, under the online safety bill, as everybody knows. So they are aiming to keep users safe, of course, from any unapproved information under the guise of child protection and combating fraud. That's the normal thing. So anyway, with ACE, they've published in the last few months a couple of papers here. One is called User-Generated Content-Enabled Frauds and Scams, and the other one is called Illegal Harms. And these have been produced in preparation for this new partnership. So they have established this relationship with ACE. Let's just remind everybody what ACE is. Well, of course, it's a program of Kinetic, and Kinetic is the defense company. So let's remind ourselves what they said about this. The accelerated capability environment solves rapidly changing digital challenges facing law enforcement and national security agencies. But if you think back a few months, we're making the point that ACE is now working with the National Health Service. So that goes a bit beyond law enforcement and national security. And now we're into online safety. Well, there's clearly a connection there with national security. At least the government tells us there is. They say we bring together expertise from industry and academia to innovate collaboratively and create mission impact at pace, typically weeks and months rather than the months and years typical of large delivery programs. And they say we are a home office capability within the Homeland Security Group that was founded in March 2017 with an initial priority to help solve frontline challenges in areas of communications data and lawful intercept. So this, David, this perhaps gives us a clue as to what's going on around the online safety bill, because we're talking about Ofcom, which is to be the new regulator, getting involved, and language being used like Homeland Security Group and lawful intercept and so on. This tends to give us a clue as to just exactly what's being built.
Yes, it is. And the same language keeps cropping up, both sides of the Atlantic. And I understand actually in the Third Reich as well, if you translate the German for the equivalent department, it was Department of Homeland Security as well. And the underlying assumptions here, that the people themselves need to be watched by the state because they are inherently a threat. Everyone's suspected, and everyone needs to be monitored, because an unmonitored citizen is a dangerous citizen.
Well, that's absolutely correct, but we don't need to worry. This might only be a short-term problem because, of course, the issue of online safety and literacy around online safety, of course, may disappear in the not-too-distant future. Let's just give you a clue as to why that would be. This is from Lichfield Live, and Lichfield School achieves its online safety accreditation. So this is a good piece of news. Well, this is the organization which is giving these out to schools, an organization called National Online Safety. Well, we can be sure that they're starting extremely young. So this is all about training teachers and parents and school governors into how to present online safety to children. And so, for example, I've just put one example on here, annual certificate in teaching online safety for early years. So we've got to get the patient young, David, and make sure that they understand how to discern for themselves what is a trusted source for information, what is disinformation, and so on. Got to get them as early as possible.
Well, this is right. I mean, and the basic principle is we're not teaching them to have discernment, to be able to make up their own minds as to what is reliable, what is reasonable, what is rational, what is logical. No. It's the source. It's all about the source. Do we trust the source? Is it the BBC? Is it the government? These are the sources we're meant to trust. Really, the ones that lied about COVID and locked us down and started all the illegal wars, those ones we're meant to trust. The ones that are lying to us about climate, those ones we're meant to trust. So this becomes, because this is how it's being portrayed, this becomes indoctrinating children to prevent them engaging in critical thinking.
That's absolutely the case. Now, of course, in the United States, the situation isn't quite the same because there doesn't seem to be, of course, they've got the First Amendment. There isn't the same legislation being pumped through, but nonetheless, people are on the receiving end of censorship. So let's just bring RFK Jr. on. He was giving a statement to the House last week. Let's just have a quick listen to this.
After I announced my presidency, it became more difficult for people to censor me outright. So now I'm subject to this new form of censorship, which is called targeted propaganda, where people apply pejoratives like anti-vax. I've never been anti-vaccine, but everybody in this room probably believes that I have been, because that's the prevailing narrative. Anti-Semitism, racism, these are the most appalling, disgusting pejoratives, and they're applied to me to silence me, because people don't want me to have that conversation about the war, about groceries, about inflation, about the war on the middle class in this country that we need to be having. Now, I want to say something I think that's more important, and it goes directly to what you talked about, ranking member, which is the need, this toxic polarization that is destroying our country today. And how do we deal with that? This kind of division is more dangerous for our country than any time since the American Civil War. And how do we deal with that? How are we every Democrat on this committee believes that we need to end that polarization. Do you think you can do that by censoring people? I'm telling you, you cannot.
Now, of course, that was he was discussing his running for president, and that was that was the context of that particular comment. But nonetheless, of course, it's not just him who is on the receiving end of this censorship, David, and we've got to keep in mind and remember that this is a widespread problem. And while it's very useful for people like RFK Jr. to be talking about this, we need to keep the focus on the broader issue.
Yes, I mean, it is clearly, and we've seen this in the UK via banking, for example, more on that later. It's very clear that the people who are in the political limelight are exposed to a level of censorship which is more, not less, than the average citizen, and they are hugely attacked if they step out of line. Hence the one-note nature of our political discourse at the moment. But it does apply to everybody. It can come for anybody at any time. You just need to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, which is what it's like to live under fascism. You're mostly okay, and then all of a sudden you're not. And there's no rule of law for a start, and there are no rights.
Yes, indeed. Okay, thank you for that.